Hi, everybody. My name is Chris from National Parents Organization, and today I'm here with Don, the chair of National Parents Organization. He's here to tell us a little bit about some exciting surveys that have happened. How are you doing today, Don?
I'm doing well, Chris. How are you?
I'm fantastic. So tell us what you've got going on here.
So, this is really interesting and should be really important for all of us who are trying to promote shared parenting. Over the past few years, National Parents Organization has done polling in a variety of states about people's attitudes towards shared parenting. But most recently, we did polling in 7 states in the last 3 months, one in November and then six just last month in January. And these polls show overwhelming support for presumptions of equal shared parenting. They're incredibly strong and they cut across every political divide. So, if you'll bear with me, I'll just give you a few of the highlights and then I'll show people how they can dig more deeply into these poll results. So, in the 7 states that we polled in the last 4 months, we asked the question: is it in a child's best interest to spend as much time as possible with each parent when the parents are separated? The polling results in these 7 states showed between 93% and 99% of the people supported that view. And there's a margin of error of about 6% in these polls, but 6%, even from this lower number of 93, is still overwhelming support. Um, we asked people whether they would be more or less likely to vote for a candidate that supported shared parenting being in the best interest of children. And there, the statistics were between 83% and 88%. And this is a statistic that ought to get the attention of elected officials. We actually also have results in Kentucky. As you know, Chris, Kentucky, as a result of the efforts of National Parents Organization, passed the strongest shared parenting legislation in the country in 2018. And we did polling after that in Kentucky. It's extraordinarily popular, the law in Kentucky. And as it turns out, those legislators that supported it did better in their reelection bids after this than the one or two legislators who opposed it. So there's evidence that people actually vote their preferences here. We asked whether people would support. One question that comes up frequently is, well, maybe shared parenting is good, but is it really good to have a legal presumption of shared parenting? Now, we have the research from the experts that show that it is really good, but our polling shows that people agree with that. So we asked, would you support a change in state law that creates a rebuttable presumption that shared parenting is in the best interest of children after parents separate? Between 83 and 88% said yes to that. And we asked whether this is a really important question because some people think that shared parenting is great when the parents get along very well and cooperate and they have a sort of idyllic idea of what shared parenting is. You know, you get together every week with the other parent and chat in a very amiable way. We know that most divorces aren't like that. Most cases of shared parenting, it's what the researchers called parallel parenting. For the most part, the parents are operating separately, but they cooperate when there's something that's important to their children's well-being. And some of the critics of shared parenting say shared parenting won't work when there's conflict. Now, we know the research shows that that's false. Linda Nielsen has done a meta study of, I think it's up to somewhere in the 80 studies that show that shared parenting is best for children even when the parents are in conflict. But that's an opinion that is shared by the public. So we asked whether, when there's conflict between separated parents, does an award of sole custody increase or decrease the conflict? And between 72 and 88% of people said that an award of sole custody increases the conflict between parents. So these are really stunning results. And one of the things I like to remind people of, people who have worked to try to change the custody laws, sometimes some of us for decades have worked on this, and it can seem frustrating. I like to remind them of the quote from Mahatma Gandhi, who said, "If the people will lead, the leaders will follow." The people are leading our legislators here, and we need to put pressure on the legislators to counteract the special interests that are blocking shared parenting legislation. So that's a bit on the results of the poll. I'd like to also share, if I could, um, the way that people can dig into these results and find more, possibly about their own state, or help to support a shared parenting poll in their state. So let me share my screen with you. So this is our home page of our web page, and if you look under work, the bottom item is shared parenting polling. We've done polls in enough states now that we think it's useful to represent these to people in using this map. The dark states are the states in which we've done polling. And if you click on those states, let's pick California, for example, where we just did polling in January. You click on that, it'll expand, and then click on it again, and you'll get highlights of the statistics. 93% of Californians believe it's in children's best interest to spend as much time as possible with each parent, etc. If you want more information, or if you want a handout that you can use in dealing with the media or dealing with legislators, click on the handout, and you'll see a short one-page handout that gives a summary of the results and explains a bit about how the survey was done. I want to emphasize that though NPO is commissioning these surveys, we're not doing the surveys ourselves. That would obviously introduce the question of whether there was bias in the way we did the surveys. We have commissioned a highly regarded independent polling agency to do these polls. So you can some people might say, well, California, that's kind of out there in some ways, but no one would say that of Arkansas. We also did polling in Arkansas, and 95% of those in Arkansas believe that it's in children's best interest to have as much time as possible with each parent, etc. These results are consistent across every state that we've polled. And we plan to do further polling in the future. If your state isn't represented here, if you click on the state, you'll find a link where you can go and contribute to a poll to be done in your state. So I want to encourage everyone to go to this webpage, see what the polling actually shows, and if your state hasn't been polled, contribute to the effort to get polling done in your state. These are incredibly powerful tools to use with legislators.
Yeah, Don, a tremendous amount of information there. So let's break it down. So the National Parents Organization has done a tremendous amount of polling. The results are amazingly consistent across the country, and those are across different, different political divides and things like that. And so, what's some of the common themes that you're seeing in the polling?
Well, I want to emphasize the point you just made that this really does cut across all political divides. So we have demographic questions there, and support for shared parenting is extraordinarily strong among, regardless of the age, regardless of the level of education, regardless of the income, of the family income, regardless of political affiliation, and regardless of race and ethnicity, and importantly, regardless of gender. So this really cuts across all divides. If you're looking for something that unifies Americans in a highly divided political climate, this is it. We care about our kids. We know that both parents are important to our children's well-being, and the public recognizes that the best way to raise children when the parents are living apart is with an equal shared parenting arrangement, if that's feasible and both parents are willing and able to do so. So that's one of the main takeaway messages here. I think it's important also that people recognize that sole custody awards are part of the problem. They're part of what causes conflict. You often hear people in the legal professions complain about how these parents are fighting one another. Well, we've set up a system where it encourages fighting, and then we complain that the parents fight. If we set up a system that doesn't encourage fighting, that encourages the parents to cooperate and collaborate, more of them, many more of them will do so. So the winner takes all approach that we have set into law is part of the problem. It's not part of the solution.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note here too that we've proven now that shared parenting works in both Kentucky and Arizona, I think the polling in these other states just shows that there are going to be many states here to follow.
I think that's right. There is. I wrote an op-ed on this, and I described it as a tsunami of support for shared parenting. I mean, it is really overwhelming. It's across the country, and the political forces that resist shared parenting legislation can't continue to resist it in the face of this kind of support.
Yeah, I think the courts are obviously slow to catch up with modern American life because a lot of this legislation was put into place many years ago when the family dynamics were much different. But I think definitely we're seeing some changes. And what's sort of the next state that you think is going to enact shared parenting?
Well, I know of at least three states now that are working on securing the funding that they need. NPO will match the funding for polling in any state, and I know of at least three that are working on securing the funding that they need to do so. And I want to make an appeal to in organizations that aren't affiliated with NPO. We will collaborate with you if you are an organization which is involved in promoting shared parenting and has a sort of child focus that NPO has, child well-being focus, will do so. And we did exactly that in Arizona. We don't have an active chapter in Arizona, but there's a very fine organization. I'm sorry, I said Arizona, I mean Arkansas. There's a very fine organization in Arkansas, Arkansas Advocates for Parental Equality, that NPO collaborated with to do this polling. So we're happy to work with other organizations that have similar goals and similar approaches to arriving at those goals. I think in the next 3 to 4 months, we'll probably see another 4 or 5 states that we are able to do polling in. And I hope to see this map that I showed a moment ago turn almost all dark blue, showing that we've done polling in almost all the states over the next 12 to 18 months.
So, Don, tell the audience a little bit about what they can do if their state doesn't currently have a poll, and how can they get involved, and how can they help?
So, first of all, let me say to those states where we have done polling, we think these are extraordinarily effective tools in dealing with the media and dealing with legislators. So, download that handout that's available on the page and use that with your legislator. Send it, it's a PDF, send a copy of it to your legislator and say, why don't we have shared parenting legislation in our state? Um, so, those people who are fortunate enough to live in states where we've done the polling, they need to use it with the media and with their legislators. If you're in a state that where we have not done polling yet, then please click on the link there that says contribute to a fund to support polling in your state. We don't have to raise an extraordinary amount of money to do this, because if we get at least 5 states to do it together, we get a bulk discount from the company that does the polling, because it simplifies their work. So it's not an enormous sum of money that we need in order to do this. Contribute what you can, and we will do polling in every state that we're able to.
Well, that's fantastic. And how can people get involved with National Parents Organization? Are there volunteer opportunities, and how do the chapters work?
There are absolutely, if there's a chapter in your state, if you go to, if I can share the web page again for just a moment, I will show people how to do this. So if you go to state chapters, you'll see another map. And if there is a chapter in your state, as there is in yours, Chris, Kansas, it will take you to a link where you'll see who the state chair is and other state officials and the opportunity to volunteer. If there's no um, chapter, oops, we'd have a chapter, excuse me. Let me, if there's no chapter, there's a link to submit information about yourself if you're interested in volunteering and helping to develop a chapter in your state. And we ask people to fill out a form that allows us to learn a little bit about you, and then we'll talk to you and see if we can get a chapter going in your state. We're not always able to do that. We have chapters in 27 states now, and we are adding them as we can. But you can volunteer in that way.
Well, that's fantastic. And tell the folks out there how they can get a hold of you and National Parents Organization.
So you can email National Parents Organization at parents@sharedparenting.org. Our website is sharedparenting.org, easy to remember. And you can email me at Don Hubin at sharedparenting.org. That's DONHUBIN at sharedparenting.org.
Well, Don, thanks so much for coming on today and giving us an update. And we look forward to talking with you again in the future.
Thank you, Chris, and thanks for all the work you do in Kansas and for National Parents Organization to get the word out about the value of shared parenting.